I want to do an update on this Yamaha. Just a minute. But window capture. Let me just change that to. Oh, I'm in the wrong thing here. Just a minute. Okay. Oh, shit. I want to be on. Just a minute. There we go. Right, just a minute. Okay, so this is annoying. So today we put the Yamaha back together again. I'm just getting the volume set right. Put the Yamaha back together again, and to be honest with you, I'm just giving up on it for now. But we need to find someone out there who knows what's going on with this thing, because I'll tell you why. This is an article I found. And I'm not alone. Apparently they do suffer from capacitor plague, right? Some of them. There's comment here from this guy. Got a Yamaha soundbar, found it won't power on. It is likely to be the capacitor plague, right? Which is what I talked about on a previous video. Capacitor plague was when a bunch of electrolytic capacitors we used a chemistry, used a new chemistry which was actually a stolen chemistry in what do you call it? Picky now. I can't think of the word. Recipe. It was a stolen recipe that some Chinese manufacturers counterfeited. This is one of the biggest problems is counterfeiters replicating and stealing other people's ideas, selling it cheap. So there was a whole bunch of these capacitors went on the market that were counterfeits, and they all failed basically after just a short period of time. So the capacitor plague is basically what's haunting a lot of electronic devices even now, because there's a lot of these stored in warehouses at sub-minus temperatures to keep them in good, well, I won't say good, but keep them in a saleable, let's just say, in a saleable condition. Obviously once you buy them and you put them in your equipment, and then about 6 or 7 months later they give up the ghost and leak all over the place, or basically short circuit or go open circuit, whatever. Anyway, so this guy here is talking about his Yamaha, which was a HTY 750. So he owned it for a few years, right? Let me just read that to you. He owned it for a few years before the trouble started. It began with the unit refusing to power on, switching off at the wall, and then back on again before hitting the power switch helped for a while. Then it got progressively more and more difficult to get it to come on at all, even with that trick. Finally it gave up completely. Now this is what we've had, this is what we're having, or been having, well still having actually, but I gave up on it because I'm just yeah. We bought new electrolytic main capacitor for it, which is a Nippon, a Japanese brand. It's a good brand. But it's obviously not that that's the main problem. The main problem is probably some other capacitors that have failed on the unit, which I never even got round to looking at to check. Because today we put it back together again, and I spoke to my neighbour about it. I said, you know what, this thing is just, yeah, we need to get a second opinion, or we need to find somebody out there who's dealt with these things before, who might know what we're looking for, because it's just not worth it. It's just not worth it, because if this thing's full of these bad capacitors, even if we get it working again, there's no telling what might happen in another 6 months' time. It might fail again. So anyway, the guys also says here, it was well out of warranty, and I did not want to be faced with the cost of shipping the heavy unit back to Yamaha for what I suspected would be a costly repair. Yeah, probably would be as well. Turning to the internet, there was absolutely no support or information on this problem for this Yamaha HDY 750 soundbar model, but I did find a repair manual online and opened the unit up to see if there was anything obvious like a blown internal fuse. Seriously, these things are built like tanks. You are not going to get into this by undoing 4 screws. Let me tell you, I forget now if I actually managed to get to the power board to see the fuse. I suspect I got frustrated by this solid construction and dozens of screws. I wasted an hour, as I recall, before giving up and confining the unit to the loft in disgust. This is another guy who also worked on this freaking Yamaha soundbars. I looked around online for a replacement, but this unit was discontinued. In fact, the Yamaha soundbar line had changed dramatically, and there was a whole new selection available. However, I wanted the older sort with the dozens of micro speakers providing the sound beam technology and the auto setup for your room dimensions using a microphone. Eventually I found the YAS B900 on eBay, which came from Yamaha subwoofer. It cost £199, which was a lot of money, but a lot less than you would pay for now, a new one, especially as it came with the separate sub. So it says here I bought and paid for the YAS B900 and fetched it from the seller. It all worked fine for several months. Several months? That's usually 3 or 4 months. However, after less than 6 months, the unit started to behave the same as my old bar. Not again! Once again, the power off at the wall trick worked for a while, until once again I had another broken unit on my hands. And worse still, no sound for watching movies at home on my projector. Help is at hand. This time, when it came to searching for help, I was in luck. There was a long and detailed thread over at AV Thought forums where many people with many different models of Yamaha soundbar all had the same problem. Better yet, someone had posted about a solution. Note that although the AV forums thread is about the YAS B1000, the symptoms are the same, and the YAS B900 and other models are all mentioned in the thread. The problem is almost all cases detailed in the thread was a degraded capacitor In the power supply, this was apparently down to capacitor plague. TLDR, mass use by electronics giants of substandard capacitors. The capacitor is in position C515 on the power board and is actually labelled pretty clearly, so if you can get to the board in the first place, you're not going to find it hard to spot the offending component. Fixing a YSP900 and HTY750. Note, before I start, let me say that I am not an expert of any sort when it comes to electronics. I am nothing more than a tinkerer. My first approach when it comes to dealing with something that is broken is to dismantle it. Sometimes I can see a problem, other times I can't, and reassemble and give up. What I'm trying to say is that if you have brave enough to attempt this repair and you have a broken unit, you have nothing to lose and are able to solder a couple of wires together, you can do this repair. I have repaired both my YSP900 and the HTY750 using the same replacement component and the same approach. While the steps to disassemble are different, the power boards are largely the same and the C515 capacitor is easy to find, remove and replace. I detail below the steps I took to repair the HTY750, and hopefully this might help you resurrect a broken unit too. So the guy goes on. You can read this. Let me just see if you can actually see all of that. Make sure you actually, yeah, that's big enough writing, I think. So I need to disable that. Just a minute. Should clean it up a bit. Right. So a lot of this stuff you don't, electric screwdriver, I just use an ordinary one. You are about to attempt a fix on an electrical device. Take all the necessary precautions before you start, including unplugging the unit from the power supply and discharging the power supply of any latent charge. You know, the capacitors, you discharge them. I accept no responsibility for any accidents that may occur, or indeed for any further damage you may do to your device. This is an easy fix, but you need to take care and be responsible. Right. So this guy has basically repaired two of his units. Now you can read all that. I'm not going to read it all out for you. I've just read the most important part. Now while I'm scrolling through this, I want to mention something. Let me zoom in. That I actually did some repairs on that power supply board in previous videos, which you'll be able to go back and look at. I replaced the main power supply capacitor. We bought a brand new 150 microfarad 400 volt capacitor, which I put in, which was bulging, gassy inside, and it had dropped down to 136. Oh no, it was 134 microfarad, I believe. And we put it back together today and powered it up, and guess what? Absolutely nothing. Still dead. So I said to my friend, my neighbour, I said, let's just put it aside for now. We need to go and do some more research, because this thing has obviously got capacitor plague, right? It's got more than one problem. And that's why I'm doing this video right now, because I'm doing the research, and I'm also sharing my research with you, because these Yamaha soundbars are an absolute disgusting disgrace to the electronics industry, because not only did they fit them with counterfeit capacitors that were made by counterfeiters in China, they don't even provide you with adequate support. The poor guy bought one of these units, he only had it under 6 months, and it failed. These units are supposed to have a lifetime guarantee, probably a year or to 2 years. 6 months, that is an absolute disgrace, that you spend £200 on something like this and you only get 6 months out of it. Oh, yeah, that is disgusting. It's a disgrace, because they'll take your money but they won't give you the support. That's what's disgraceful about this. Let me try and zoom in a bit more. Oh, it's going weird on me if I do that. Hang on a minute, I need to go back to screen capture, because I want to zoom right in. Window, yeah, screen capture, let's turn that back on. Let's turn this. Let's turn off window capture, disable that. A minute. I want to, you want to see me zoom in if I do. Now this board, this is the adjacent board, I believe. This is not the main power supply board. I think this was the adjacent board on the other unit I was working on, and I never actually worked on this. But look at this. Look at these capacitors, these little with the green stripe. Those are electrolytics. Those are obviously a fault or culprit. Now let me just zoom out a bit, because I've zoomed in too much because I can't see the text now. Well, let's go down. Look, this is what I was faced with. The number of screws in that frigging device was absolutely insane. And he's got the same problem. Look at that. You're not just taking 4 screws out, you're taking out a freaking armada. This is why people get really frustrated and annoyed about repairing this sort of stuff. It's a freaking nightmare, and I was really pissed off. Right, plug wires from the board, remove metal plate, blah blah blah. This is his repair. That is not the main power supply board. That is the controller board, by the way. That is the controller board. You can tell because it's got the multiple ICs. You don't have all this multiple control pins. The power supply, you have a pretty basic power supply. This is a controller. This is a controller board that interfaces with the remote control and everything. Let's go down. You can read it yourself. I'll pause and let you read it. But the main power supply is the main power lead coming in, right? Well, this doesn't have it. So let me just zoom in again. No, this is not the main power supply board. The main power supply board has a transformer on it. Right, so let's go further down where you can read. There's the power supply board. That's the power supply board. That's the one I repaired. This one here, well, mine was slightly different arrangement, but it's the same thing, right? There's a transformer. And I replaced the main capacitor on there, which is a big one. That one, the brown one in the middle. That big brown one in the middle is the one I replaced. And 150 microfarad, 400 volt. And the ones on the end were fine. The other smaller ones were fine. I checked them, I measured them, they were all good. Obviously he's dealing with a different version. You know, I think it's the 9000, is it, or 900 series, this one. Let's see what he has to say. Now I can read the text. Unscrew the silver screws that hold the power board in place and unplug the connection. Yeah, right, okay, we can read it. You can read that yourself. Now, let's look at this. That's the ribbon cable. Let's see what he says here. Take extreme care with the connector highlighted in the picture below. It bridges the power. Well, I didn't see that one in the yeah, I didn't see that in the YAS 3 or 6. Is that the right one? YAS 3 or 6? I think so. Or is it? Anyway, my memory is so bad. Now he's going to outline, I think he's going to show us which capacitors he replaced, which will be useful because there are a couple of very stubborn connectors that I literally could not get to come undone. Both were beige coloured and are firmly down onto the board. So see below an example of one of the connectors. Right, yeah, well, I didn't see those and we didn't have problems. There's a little tab you have to unclip actually. He maybe didn't realise, but those capacitors on that board, look at them. They look like Nichicon, but they're not. Those are cheap. Those are the cheap capacitor plate ones, I think. They're the counterfeit ones. The one that I fitted, the new one, the new brown one, is a Nichicon. It's a Japanese one, which is a good brand. These are all Chinese ones. You can tell. Look, they like to use names that look similar to a high quality brand name, but people that don't know any better will say, oh, that's a good brand, that's from Japanese. No, it's not. It might have a name similar, but it can confuse the heart of some people. So I decided not to force them on my luck, as there was enough play in the cables to allow me to lift the power board out and find what I was looking for. The C515 capacitor. Right. Huh, right. So could that be the problem? I didn't see that one on my friends. I went to do some repairs on my friends and I didn't see that one. But yeah, this is what I'm doing right now. I'm doing research so we can go back to it if we get some new leads. Right. So I'm not going to read it all. You can read it. I'm just going to pause. Yeah, I've got stacks of those kind of capacitors in my component tray. New old stock, as they say. So I need to give you time to read that. So you might have this particular unit. But I checked those and they all checked out okay. So whatever problem we've got with the soundbar I've been working on, it's not that. Because I checked those and they were all reading okay. I didn't actually take it out the board, but there was no need to because I was able to check it in situ. But yeah, it's just the time. Sometimes it's just not worth it, especially if the whole unit is full of bad components. That's the new one he's putting in. He put in. I can say that sometimes these resin dipped, these are resin dipped ones, right? Let me zoom in. The white stuff on top is a bit of ceramic glue. Those resin dipped capacitors, I'll tell you what happens to them. The moisture, the legs that come out the bottom, sometimes the resin when they're dipped isn't sealing them properly and moisture creeps in up the leg, gets into the capacitor if they've been stood for a long while or in a damp area. Moisture can get inside them and it can destroy them. The reason why they're dipped in resin in the first place is to keep moisture out. But if moisture does find a way up the leg into the component, they can oxidize and corrode inside and they can fail. So usually you shouldn't bend the legs too much to crack that resin. So we were looking for that particular capacitor and I didn't find the fault. So I was going after the electrolytic ones. So the whole bunch of stuff on here. I might actually bookmark this because let's see, why can I stick that? Oh, I'll just stick it in computer, I think. So Maplin went out of business actually. Maplin, they gone out of business a few years ago, so this, bloody hell, this article must be old. Yeah, well, I actually need to put this link in the description of this live stream. So this article's got some good thumbs. These are advertisements. Oh, what is this down here? Oh, these are advertisements. Don't want to see all that. So yeah, I'll put the. Oh, let me just go to. Leave it on there a minute while I go on. Let's see live. See if I can put a link. Relative article, put a link. Right, so we might have to go back and check because I might, just in case, but we're just gonna put it, we're just gonna think about this and I'll go back and review some of my footage. I'm pretty sure that capacitor was okay, because I can review my footage that I did earlier. Pretty sure. Yeah, I think there was ceramic discs. There were different types of capacitor and the actual unit I was working on. So I feel sorry for that guy though, because it looks like his is even worse than the one I worked on, because he had to get this out before he could get to the power supply board, which is obviously underneath all that, or it's attached to it, which is it's on the right actually. The main power supply board's on the right. So we had no trouble getting ours out. It was actually a lot easier to remove. Yeah, it looks like this is the back, this is the other side. The power supply board must have been underneath. Oh, I can see it down there for that crack. So when I zoom right in, the power supply is down there in that hole. No, you can see the socket for the power supply is right down there. So I had to remove all this to get underneath it, to get to the power supply underneath. He had a hell of a job, even more than what I had actually, but they're very badly thought out, badly made. Very poor. I'm not surprised people are resorting to fixing stuff themselves now, because no shop out there will do it economically enough. It's just ridiculous, and you've got to learn a bit of basic electronics. You've got to learn a little bit, and even though I've got quite many years of experience in electronics, I come across something like this and I'm thinking, oh, I'm so glad I don't do this stuff anymore, you know, but occasionally I do, and then I think, oh yeah, I don't think I'd want to go back into doing this job as for a living, if I was well enough to do that, that is, because freaking heck. I mean, sometimes you gotta take these things apart. Look at the screws. Look at all them freaking screws. Look at them. There's 2 trays full of screws. Look at that lot. See that? That's what I was dealing with the YAS 306. Why the hell do they have to have so many freaking screws? It's because they're badly designed. Most stuff is clipped together, or that's ridiculous. That is absolutely ridiculous. Anyway, that's it. Let's see, where are we? What am I doing? Wrong one. So I'm gonna go. I'm just gonna review my other footage and check to see what I did there. And thanks for watching. Bye.